This is the China Hollywood Greenlight Podcast, episode number 28.
And rolling sound. Quiet.
Here we go. Ready.
Speeding. 120, take 7.
And action.
This is Karen McCann, the host of the China Hollywood Greenlight Podcast, a podcast about creating and distributing content for both Hollywood and China. If you like the show, please go to iTunes, subscribe, and leave a rating so other people can find this podcast. The more we work together, the more opportunities will be out there for everyone. Any links mentioned in the podcast can be found in the show notes, which is at ChinaHollywoodGreenlight.com, and look for this episode, which is number 28. Before I introduce today's guest, I'd like to start out with a motivational quote to encourage our listeners to continue on their path to achieving their own green light. And today's quote is from British statesman Benjamin Disraeli. And he said, "There is no education like adversity." A quick update on what I'm working on. I'm in the testing stages of my new membership website, which is called the China List. Now, this is a website that will enable writers and producers to make connections, writers and producers in Hollywood and China. My plan is to launch this in the next couple of weeks. I'm also gearing up for the Hong Kong film market, and for the first time, it will be virtual, but this is the new normal. I'm also finishing a rewrite on a TV pilot that is very controversial since it deals with the U.S.-China tensions. But, as many experts say, write what you're passionate about and not chase the market. I am definitely not chasing the market on this one. And here is the main segment. Sammie Hao is a media analyst for Yintai Investment based in Hollywood. She researches culturally rich film titles and assists in business and content development. Sammie has seen the transition of the film industry in the past decades. Not only does she take part in the full cycle of media campaigns, but she is also working on her first feature film as a writer-producer. Sammie believes that Hollywood's co-production with China can mutually enrich and elevate the markets to a new level. She thinks the great content can spark the right chemistry between the U.S. and China and fertilize the film culture even in these difficult times. Well, Sammie, thank you for being on the podcast today.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Now, I told the audience a little bit about you, but why don't you take a minute and tell us about yourself personally and your business?
Sure. Thank you for introducing me. My name is Sammie. I came to study film production in the U.S. in 2007. That's when I came to the U.S. And before that, I studied at a Chinese college for directing for 2 years. So I've been involved in film production development ever since 2004-5-ish.
Okay.
And I'm deeply in love with this industry. And as a Chinese English bilingual professional, film professional, I do want to bridging the two, markets and create content that for these two markets. I want to see more Chinese film and Hollywood have more engagement in terms of creating the content for both markets. And that's my goal. And that's hopefully I want to do in the next decade.
Oh, wow. So you're already on your way. Now, usually with my guests, I usually ask, the first question is usually, why do you want to get into the U.S. market for Chinese executives or for American execs? I'll say, why do you want to get into the China market? But for you, I'm going to combine it since you're doing both.
Right.
Why do you want to enter the U.S.-China film/TV market?
Yeah, when I saw the two first question, I thought, okay, I could answer both. Yes. I think why do I want to enter the Chinese market? I think it's obvious because I was born and raised in China. That my value was established when I was in China. So all my all the content, when I think about the stories I want to tell, the contents I want to create are all based on Chinese culture. Either it's a myth, or it's a current affair, or it's a true event that happens in China. So that's the reason I want to. I don't think I would never want to just completely get rid of my background, my culture. Right. That's why I want to stay in or enter the Chinese market. And the reason I want to stay in the American market is, one, because I studied film here. I worked here ever since I graduated, and I do understand the business side of Hollywood very much. I've been working for content development company and an investment company since I graduated. So I understand the business, how it gets managed in Hollywood, how the picture gets made, how it gets invested, and I think it could. China, there's a lot of things that China can learn from, and to and that's one of the reasons. And another reason I want to stay in the U.S. market is because all the platforms, the streamers, the streaming platforms like Netflix, YouTube. Now there's evermore. There's Peacock, there's QB, there is
recently too.
HBO, there's and they all take a large percent of the market.
Right.
So I think this is gonna ever change how audiences get entertained, and it's gonna ever change the industry itself. And all those companies are established and grows in the U.S. Right. So I think there's still a lot we can observe and learn. And I think all those platforms create a new norm in this industry, right?
Right.
And it gives filmmakers more opportunity and potential. Because before, if you only look at theatrical release, that people need to go out and purchase a ticket and see your film. But if they're at home, they can literally explore whatever content they want. Exactly. So to us, content creators, it's a large relief that even if you make ultra low budget film to a high budget, those blockbuster movie, that you would have an audience, because literally in every corner in this world you will have an audience. So it gives us a lot of potential that we can create different contents.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, and I do want to eventually work with streamer, and yes, and see what chemistry that we can create.
Now, you mentioned, normally people go out to movies. Obviously, that's not happening now. So my next question is usually, what are two or three main tasks you do on a typical day? Well, we know with COVID, nothing's typical, but just the audience to understand your job, tell us a couple of things you do in that capacity.
So, like I mentioned, I've been working in content development and business side for a while now. Also, before I started with Intai, I was a buyer. I was a buyer to acquire foreign content and bring to China.
Great.
So luckily, a typical day of my life is reading scripts and watching screeners. And because I was heavily involved in the investment phase of the full circle, I also have a lot of meetings with filmmakers, producers, directors, and investors. So I would have to say it's what we can't complain that we read scripts and watch content. We'll watch the movies for a living. That's been really great.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that you meet, directors and investors. How do you find these business partners? And the second part of that is, how do you suggest listeners find perhaps a Chinese producer or financier?
I met, all those, because we've been doing acquisition and investment, so we receive a lot of submissions.
Okay.
From, very low budget indie film to mid budget studio or secondary studio films. So that's one of the way we meet with filmmakers, is when they submit their projects, we review them. If we're interested in, we schedule a meeting and learn more about their vision and their skills and their style, and give a decision whether we want to proceed with their projects. So that's one way we meet filmmakers. Another way that how I met my partner is so I'm currently working on my first feature as a writer and producer.
Wow. And, congrats.
Thank you. So we met at a Cannes Film Festival in 2018. My co-writer, she was a student in Germany, and she was very into filmmaking. And she already made some shorts in France and received some awards in Europe. And we kind of hit off because we both like the same movie and genre. And last year she started producing program at Chapman University, and that's when I was already working in the investment side. So we would read the same scripts and just talk about it, discuss what we like, and we found some topics we really like, and that's how we started to develop the current scripts. So I think how to find the right partner is definitely chemistry, whether you share the same value and vision with this person, and personality wise you need to kind of get along with your partner. And I think, to my personal experiences, I feel like you need to work with someone, it's sort of like match you in a way that's different from you. Because I'm obviously more outgoing, and the more PR side of this partnership, and partner is more she's really into writing and do research and polish the story. But when it comes to a presentation, and I'm obviously the stronger.
That's a good combination.
Yes. So when you look for a partner, you kind of have to think of that chemistry as well.
And then how would you suggest maybe the listeners find a Chinese producer?
Through at film festival, that's how most people find their partners. It's a magical week at any festival that you can really see if you can get along with someone or you share the same value. But when it comes to a Chinese partner, I think that comes to I would say a deeper conversation that you have to understand Chinese culture and Chinese mentality, because I know a lot of bad money that flew to Hollywood years ago, and it sort of it hurt the reputation and credibility of Chinese filmmaker like myself, that we're trying to do everything to bridging the two culture, not to set apart.
Right.
But those dishonorable business types that kind of kill the industry a little bit. So, but as a Chinese myself, I have the understanding and the eyes to kind of filter some business. So I think for a foreign person that tries to find a Chinese partner, you sort of have to understand the Chinese culture a little bit more in order to see or to eliminate some bad business.
Right.
If you just only look for the right, if it's just personality wise, that you never know if it'll work out.
And you probably need you could get referrals as well.
Referral, definitely a good way to start. See the track record, and I know, and a lot of Chinese filmmaker, even in China, they speak English very well. So
okay,
you want to find someone you can easily communicate with. You don't want to always have an interpreter or translator.
Oh yes, no, too much trouble. Now, just to follow up on that, if someone were to submit to Yintai, is that something they do through the development department, or they go through an agent, or what's your policy?
It's my boss. He's an industry expert. He knows everybody, so people would just send projects to him. And also, I've built some connection here, and people know me, where I work, and what kind of project I would be interested. So they would also send me, and people would just look up on the internet and find
exactly.
And send, or through LinkedIn. So there's different ways, but mostly it's through referral or personal connection.
Okay, good. Now, let's talk a little bit about an obstacle. Can you talk briefly about an obstacle you encountered on a past project? How did you overcome it, and what did you learn?
Obstacles, I would say, either from content development point of view or acquisition point of view, the biggest problem I encountered was the censorship system.
In China? In
China, yes, because I was a buyer for 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah. When you buy a movie, or you're trying to make a movie,
right.
you just know there's so many red flags, but the problem of this whole censorship system is there's no clarified guideline, because the censorship line is constantly changing and expanding, and it's just constantly changing. Depends on the current affair, political reasons, social reasons,
right?
A lot of facts. So you don't really know where the red line could be. Red flag or red line could be. So you just have to, again, really understand the culture and stay with the current everything, the news, the how the current affair, political. So you have to read a lot of news. You have to stay on social media, and to be open-minded and be alerted of what's going on in China and around China too.
Three things. If you were a buyer and you found a film and you thought it's not going to pass censorship, would you ask the director to cut those questionable scenes, or B, just pass on the film?
Normally, we when we buy film, there's different phases of the stages where you acquire, right? Some are in pre-production when there's nothing.
Right. Okay. Okay.
And when you read the script, you obviously it's not a completed film yet, so you would maybe reach out back to the producer, say, hey, I think these things are not going to work in China. Would you, if you really want, China to consider, would you willing to change it? Or would you really willing to do some editing at the end? And that's one way. When it's a completely completed film, that's when you obviously the genre or the theme, the topic, the story needs to work for China. If there's certain scenes that raise a red flag that we can do some editing, that we would usually request a editing rights that.
Okay.
In order to pass the censorship, we can do some light edit, not to the storyline or to, like destroy the
concept,
creator's concept. That we would just do some light editing, and that's it's a pretty common industrial term when it comes to position. So
is in general, the red flags would be like no ghosts, no bad Chinese cops. And this is very general.
Cultural, religious,
political, no cultural,
no cultural, no bloody violence scene, and no, horror. Those are very basic, but you never know when, just some, let's say this you already paid your deposit and you're waiting to a film to be made, and one of the actor that is take a role in this film made some bad comments regarding China.
Oh boy!
Right. That's one, and that's why I'm saying it's
tricky.
It's very tricky. It's
So how do you overcome this? That's the obstacle. I mean, overcoming, obviously you have that knowledge of Chinese culture. So that's one solution.
How to overcome it, you have to understand the culture, and when you read a script or watch or a screener, you need to give comments or notes. When you read a script, you can give notes and say, hey, please change this part, and after that we'll see if it worked for China. And or after you watch a screener, you can give notes like, oh, let's edit this part, let's cut this minutes to this minutes. And that's one way we call editing. And the second way is if the project, no matter how good it is, you just don't touch it. Like take an example, once upon a time in Hollywood, when I first heard that project, I didn't think it would work, even though director it's Quentin Tarantino. But I think in general, like, even you can try the best you can. And I heard it got the dragon card, the releasing card in China, but still it never made to theaters.
Right.
Because I think that whole content itself, that story itself, is just not typically what China would want their audiences want.
Right. Yeah.
So you can manage it in the backstage, but those contents are not in favor of the Chinese administration. So those content, even though it's good content, you just don't. It's risky.
Exactly.
It has a potential to explore, but it's very risky. So that's one way. Another way you can avoid. And when you create content, when you write a script, it's how you balance your as a creator, your vision and what would pass the censorship. So some topic in your movie, you want to go deep, you want to dig more, but when you do that, eventually there's bad signals or red flags that raises. Right. So you just have to kind of balance out.
Okay. Well, that sort of leads me to my next question. I mean, we're talking about obstacles. Let's move on to pain points. If you could magically solve 2 problems, what would they be?
Right now, I think to most China-US business, not owning to entertainment is the US and China's tension.
Oh, yes.
By the trade war.
Yes.
Obviously, we truly hope it's just a turbulence, and eventually we're gonna take off, and we're gonna, gonna go maybe not back to maybe 5 years ago, the honeymoon mode, but at least a very respectful, very it's in a way that we can sit down and just do business.
Exactly. And is there a second problem you'd like to solve?
Yes. The second problem is I want to, like I mentioned earlier, that all those dishonorable business that happened a few years ago in between China and Hollywood that sort of hurt our reputation and credibility. So emotionally, that's personally, I want to, from at least like what we can do, what I can do, what we can do as young, this, uprising Chinese filmmaker in Hollywood can do is to help to rebuild that trust.
Yes.
Recreate a respectful business model between China and US that we can sit down and talk about business.
Oh, well, I applaud that. That sounds like great news. Now, what sort of future projects are you looking for? Is it film or TV? And what do you think the Chinese studios are looking for?
It's because of the COVID, a lot of productions got shut down. So it's obviously anticipated that we will have a window that all around the world, platforms, theatrical or just hunger for new content, and it's already happening in China and US soon.
Right.
When I participated in virtual Cannes Film Festival this year, a lot of people mentioned that they anticipate end of this year until mid next year, even later, depends on how bad the situation will get, right?
To start filming or to do what?
Everything. Well, there's all the production gets shut down. There's not enough finished film for next year.
Oh, right.
Late this year to next year.
Right. Okay.
So, that's that's one thing we can look at is to feed those windows.
Right.
And in a long term, like I said, the COVID really changed a lot of things. And for entertainment, there will be new norms, new businesses that come out. And I believe that ultra low budget to low budget film will be more favored by streamers and other other platforms, channels. So I would personally like to participate rather low budget content development, and another thing I definitely want to do is I want to tell Chinese stories.
Right.
I think there's a lot of IP and stories are like lost gem. And I think my ideal co-production would be create content-wise like Coco, the animation.
Okay.
That was very sweet, Mexican story, but the whole world would,
Exactly.
appreciate it and sympathized.
Now, do you have any thoughts on what the Chinese studios in mainland China might be interested in?
Yes. I think Chinese mainland China, the studios are always hunger for good content, and the situation in China is people not only in China, it's the whole world, even Hollywood.
Okay.
You need to have IP. And that's why the Chinese major studios are constantly, they already digged all the literature IPs, like the books or, some stories or even some podcast or bloggers. All those IP has been discovered.
Wow.
So now the next step is if you have original content that's strong enough to beat over those IPs and so they can prioritize your story and your project.
Is there a genre that's more marketable in China?
In China, yeah, I think genre films, very popular. Everybody's asking good genre film like thrillers, and because of the censorship, I don't think horror would work.
Right.
Well.
Right.
But thriller, definitely thriller. Romance is different, romance, because the target audiences or demographics are very set. It's female audiences. So it does have a great potential, but at the same time, it's kind of limited to certain demographic in China.
Okay. Let me ask you this. What skills or talents are essential to do your job well?
To do my job, that you need to have a basic understanding of Chinese culture.
Okay.
You need to be confident at what you do. You need to, I think overall, you need to believe in this. A lot of my friends are same on the same stage as I am, that we want to do something regarding, bridging the China and Hollywood.
That's fantastic.
Yes. So you really need to believe it. It's painful every time we talk about it. It's like, oh, this is really hard. There's no future. But at the end of the day, you still realize this is what you want to do, and you just kind of suck up all the pain and all those obstacles and stick on your path.
But I would think, though, nowadays a lot of the American film companies, despite the trade war, despite the political rhetoric, I would think a lot of American film execs, TV execs are looking to China and say that's where the growth is.
Yes, obviously, of course. I just read that Disney Plus is eager to enter Chinese market because it has a huge revenue potential, and
right.
And because the failure of Netflix in China, that kind of become it made things very difficult for major streamers like Disney or Netflix to enter in China. So China is a definitely growing market and has not yet even close to the point of the mass capacity of the market, and everybody, it's a common understanding in this industry. I think it's great if more foreign content can be introduced to China, because the population and because China, I mean, I don't think the domestically the content would feed that market. That's why we need to have, when you look at the trade war and all this political wars between the two countries right now, and you see that after the theater reopened, all the films get theatrically released, or Harry Potter, or all those American films. So it's very interesting, and that speaks for itself that there's definitely a lot of rooms for this two market to work together. And this Christopher Nolan's new film Tenet is confirmed to release in theater, I think very soon. So regardless all the what's happening right now, China knows that they need Hollywood content, and Hollywood knows they need Chinese market. That's just how simple it is.
Yeah, that's wise words. And now just a quick side question. Why do you think Netflix failed in China?
I think, and from some of my insights of the background story is they came in too harsh. They wanted it to happen too quick, that they did not follow certain business rules that they should have followed. Okay.
Wow, that was a mistake.
Yes, and when you work with China, you really want to go. You want to make, and also when you work with Chinese, it's never, you have to make it mutually beneficial. You can't
of course.
only look at the market and say like, oh, I want your market share. You also have to provide a lot, and that was it's nobody's fault, because back then Netflix wasn't strategically planning their global expansion and developing content that has a international value. It was mostly focused on the US market, but that was back then. Now they have contents for almost every country, but China is missing. So that was it's just you want to be the first to do something, and that was the consequences. So there's a lot of to learn for other companies now, like Disney, if they want to enter Chinese market, or other companies. So I think I took it as a good thing, good sign, or a good attention.
Exactly. Well, now the other streamers, they kind of could learn from Netflix's mistakes.
Yeah, definitely.
So here's a trick question. What question did I not ask you that I should have?
You covered almost everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's it's very difficult market to work with, and it's a niche market, and only people that not look for quick money or a short-term return, that would just believe what you want to do and stay on this path would eventually and hopefully make it. And that's my view right now, after working in different aspects and work with different people.
Okay, good. Now, last question. What advice can you give those aspiring? Now, I know you have a lot of advice this whole time, but in conclusion, what advice can you give to those aspiring to tap into the China market?
Is understand the culture. And,
that's a big one.
And don't be too eager, and
don't think you can get rich quick.
Right. There's no quick return in entertainment. You really, look at, Korea. I personally love Korean movie. And before, people only look at, Bong Joon-ho won Oscar, they won Cannes. But before, all this happened. There was decades of
that's right.
High quality films, high quality scripts, and their directors. Some are studied in France, some studied in US, and they build all these years experiences, and they combined with their own culture and created all these great content, great films. So if you only look at quick return, I don't think China is it's maybe you can make the first scope of gold, but that's it. And also you need to create content that you need to respect the market. You need to have your audience sympathize with you, like, they're a good content provider. They make good stories. You can't just make something and try to feed your audience.
Right. Force feed them
your content for them. And once you earn that respect, I think audience will return to you. You would deserve the same return from the audiences.
Excellent. Now, in conclusion, would you like to share any social media details so our audience can keep track of your work?
I would love to, but our company has just started. It started amid the COVID, and it's funny that we wanted to name the company First Major. It's like it's like, oh, we can't if because of this, and
that's funny.
But the company name got denied by the Chinese.
Probably a smart idea.
So, but yeah, we started this company in China and trying to make some content, but we don't have a website yet.
Oh, okay.
And, if you want to follow me, you can find me on LinkedIn, and we can stay connected. And just stay tuned. I'm sure next year we will have a lot of new content comes up.
Okay, great. Well, Sammie, thank you for coming on the podcast today.
And for having me.
Great.
Enjoyed our conversation a lot.
Oh, me too. And we'll see you at the premiere.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
I've got 3 key points and 3 takeaways. 3 key points. Number 1, skill set. When choosing a partner, it's best to pair up with someone whose skills complement your own. You also need to learn about Chinese culture. Then do your homework, get referrals, and check track records. Number 2, avoid bad business deals. A few years ago, as Sammie said, quote, bad money flew to Hollywood, unquote, and many high-profile deals collapsed. Sometimes Westerners can make the mistake of believing the China hype over doing their due diligence. A sorry tale of expecting riches from China without doing your homework was on the front page of the paper recently. It's outside the film industry, but it's such a tragic cautionary tale, I thought I'd mention it. Car legend and Ford Mustang designer Steve Saleen thought he found a savior when Chinese investors approached him to make his muscle cars in China. The cars manufactured turned out to be poor imitations. The cars even had a happy face emoji on the hood, if that tells you anything. It was a bust, and now everyone is suing. Unfortunately, Steve already handed over his designs to the joint venture. So Steve lost millions, he's suing his partner for fraud, his reputation is in tatters, and he lost his IP for the car designs since they're wrapped up in the joint venture. Steve's strong point was car design, not financial maneuverings. He picked the wrong partner. So here's a lesson. Do your due diligence. Number 3, no quick return. Don't make the same mistake Netflix did. Back then, they tried to get into China but wanted too much too fast. Your project must be beneficial to China, and don't think you can take a shortcut to succeed in China. It is a long path. Takeaways. Number 1, U.S.-China tension. There's a lot of news coming out of Washington that paints a very dire picture of future relations with China. And yes, as Sammie mentioned, there were many bad deals, quote, dishonorable business that happened a few years ago between China and Hollywood. However, there are up-and-coming Chinese filmmakers in Hollywood now who are striving to renew that trust and hope to recreate a respectful business model between the U.S. and China. Number 2, censorship. For Westerners who want to get distribution in China, your script will have to pass censorship. Ask yourself, are you willing to balance your vision with what would pass censorship? Then avoid red flags such as ghosts, showing mainland Chinese cops as corrupt. Avoid religious and political topics. Avoid ultraviolence. You must decide, is this going to water down your vision? Is it worth it? Only you can answer that. Number 3, low budget. Next year, low-budget films will get their close-up, since due to COVID-19 and all the new restrictions on filming, producers will be looking for ways to shoot while following these new guidelines. With a low-budget script, you have a smaller cast, fewer locations, etc. Low-budget scripts will be the hot property, so your next writing project should be low-budget. Well, that's the show. Thank you for listening. To show your support, please go to iTunes, subscribe, and leave a rating so other people can find this podcast. As screenwriters, producers, and talent agents, we will soon be launching the China List. This is a membership website to connect writers with producers and reps in Hollywood and China. It will also connect producers to Chinese financiers. Well, that's the show. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you at the premiere. Bye. 一会儿见.